Hello everybody, it's Chibi, and today is going to be an anime review on Sailor Moon Crystal. It's actually been a while since I've reviewed this series. I think it's been about 2 to 3 weeks now, because, last week it didn't air, and it was unexpected because I was like, oh, where's my Sailor Moon, and it didn't come out. So, yeah, it's been a while. So tell me your thoughts about that. How do you feel about, Sailor Moon taking that long to have an episode come out? So anyways, about this week's episode, the main focus is Sailor Jupiter's introduction. Now, her character, that's pretty much the main concept of this episode. It was trying to flesh out her character, show her viewpoint. We get to see her character design, and we get to see exactly her motives and different things like that. Now, the transformation scene in this episode, when you see Sailor Jupiter transform, I feel like by far is one of my favorites when it comes to the transformations, because the way they had the lightning effect, Toei Animation added the lightning effect to the transformation when you see like the lightning going around Sailor Jupiter, and then the background along with it looked really freaking amazing. It did. One thing I will have to say is that the CGI transformations never get freaking old. I love the CGI transformations. Usually, after I watch a CGI transformation, I would skip it after the first time of watching it. But I have to admit that the Sailor Moon transformation scenes, even, Usagi, Sailor Moon, Sailor Mars, and Sailor Mercury, I loved all their transformations in this episode. And I like the way Toei Animation actually shortened the transformations, but they made it kind of unique. For instance, like when you saw the transformations of Sailor Moon, Mars, and Mercury, you saw like, how their tiaras came on their heads. You saw a bunch of them, like their perspectives switch from like Mars to Mercury and so forth. You get to see how they're transforming, and I like how actual Toei Animation took the time to show each individual transformations, but they sped up the process. And like Sailor Jupiter, I like the way she, actually had her entire transformation fleshed out, and hopefully Toei Animation actually will, keep to that format to the way used with Sailor Moon's transformation this episode. Like, kind of rush up the transformation, but, put everybody's transformation one by one. For instance, like, as, like, someone's transforming into their tiara, you see, like, it pan over to the tiara transformation to the other one and so forth, and you get to see all their finished, sequences of their transformation, which would look really badass. Now, besides that, the fight, like the villain of this episode pretty much was just trying to collect, energy from these romance couples. For instance, dudes would go around trying to find, an outfit for his wife to wear at, his wedding ceremony, and they would get caught up in this, like, I-beam thing, and you see them, become slaves to this marionette in this episode. Now, overall, the villain of this episode pretty much just wanted to collect energy. It's a basic concept of how this episode was laid out. It's not bad. It was a good episode, and personally, for what it did, demonstrating Sailor Jupiter's entire motive, it did a good job of entertaining me. For instance, Sailor Jupiter is the guardian of love and courage. Now, that's a pretty interesting one, because her entire character design, it's really interesting of how she was done in this episode. Like, right off the bat, they make us believe that this girl, Mako, is like an extremely strong individual, and she beats the shit out of guys. That's pretty much what they make us think in the first half of this episode, because you have a bunch of these students around Mako, or Sailor Jupiter, talking bad about her, trash-talking her, kind of bullying her a little bit in this episode, segregating her, and she felt very alone, as we could see, and at the exact same time, we find out a little bit of backstory about her, of how she used to have this crush on her senpai, and her senpai got with a girlfriend and she was left alone. And so it's pretty sad how that kind of worked out in this episode, but she meets a new senpai in the arcade, and she most likely is going to fall in love with him. So let's hope for that, because maybe she might be able to look past, her, sad past of not being able to fall in love with her old senpai, and she might move on to this new senpai. So tell me your thoughts about that. Overall, animation was on point. I love the animation, and the CGI looked fucking great. It really did. So no complaints on my end. It was a good episode of Sailor Moon Crystal, and I can't wait for next week's episode, or, 2 weeks episode, because, we have to wait, 2 weeks for the next episode. Now, I want to mention something real quick. I remember a couple of Chibits, like 2 weeks back, telling me in the comments, I could be wrong, or, I could have gotten the wrong information, but supposedly this series is going to be like 24 to 25 episodes, so that's very good that now that we know that Sailor Moon Crystal is going to be 24 to 25 episodes. Now, I don't know how much they can really cover in that span of time of episodes. I don't know if it can cover the entirety of Sailor Moon, but if it does, that'll be very interesting. So tell me your thoughts. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.